A quiet town, idyllic on the surface, where everyone knew everyone. It felt safe, almost too safe. But beneath that calm, beneath the gentle hum of daily life, shadows always lurked. One ordinary Tuesday, Sarah went missing. Just vanished without a trace. No note left behind, no goodbye. Nothing but an empty room and a chilling silence. Her parents were frantic, understandably so. Their world crumbled in an instant. Police started searching immediately, combing every inch of the small town door to door. They scoured the nearby woods, dragged the river, searched every familiar corner, but found nothing. With each passing hour, the initial surge of hope dwindled, replaced by a cold, heavy dread. Days bled into weeks, then agonizing months, stretching endlessly for those who waited. The missing person posters faded in the sun and rain, but the sharp pain of loss never did. Detective Miles took the lead on Sarah's case. A seasoned cop, he'd seen too much already. He carried the weight of every unsolved case. But this felt different, more personal somehow. Every single lead turned into a dead end. Every promising tip vanished like a ghost in the fog. He interviewed everyone remotely connected to Sarah, often twice, some even more, hoping for a crack. The town, once united in worry, started whispering. Speculation and fear were rife. Some whispered she ran away, chasing dreams. Others feared something far worse had happened. Miles felt the immense pressure, the heavy weight of an unsolved case pressing down on him. Evidence was scarce, agonizingly so, almost non-existent. A puzzle with too many missing pieces. The few symbolic felt objects found offered no real clues, just more questions. The file on his desk grew thicker with reports and theories, yet offered no concrete answers. Years passed, calendar pages turning relentlessly, marking time Sarah was gone. The case, once active, slowly moved to the cold case shelf, gathering dust and despair. Sarah's name, once shouted in pleas, became a hushed, painful memory in the town. Miles, though, couldn't shake it off. Her face haunted his quiet moments. He'd pull the dusty file late at night, long after everyone else had gone home. Seeking something new, he'd reread every statement, stare at old, blurry photos, searching for what he missed. A nagging feeling, a tiny, overlooked detail, always tugging at the edges of his thoughts. Everyone else had, understandably, moved on with their lives. But he simply couldn't. He saw Sarah's innocent face in his dreams, a silent accusation, a plea for answers, a promise unfulfilled, a question left agonizingly unanswered, driving his quiet obsession. Then, a small break. Years later, a glimmer of hope pierced the darkness. An old police report, routinely reviewed by a diligent rookie, caught his eye. A minor detail about a discarded item found close to the old mill was noted. A small, symbolic felt mitten, partly obscured by shrubbery, had been dismissed back then. It was deemed too common, a simple lost item, and quickly forgotten in the initial chaos. But Miles remembered Sarah's distinct mittens, hand-stitched by her grandmother. A unique pattern, the intricate, hand-stitched pattern, the blend of fibers. It was unforgettable to him. He pulled the dusty evidence box from the archives, a sense of urgency in his hands There it was, tucked away beneath other forgotten items, a tangible link to the past, a small flicker of hope, fragile but real, ignited in the long-held darkness of the case. Miles took the mitten to the state forensics lab, new technology offering fresh possibilities. He stood before the team, explaining the old case, the new lead, the painstaking search for truth. They found microscopic fibers embedded deep within the felt, not just wool, but something else. A synthetic blend, surprisingly rare for their rural area. A crucial piece of the puzzle. This unique fiber linked directly to a local textile factory that had closed years ago. A silent, empty building on the edge of town. A ghost of its former industrial self. The factory was owned by a quiet, reclusive man, Mr. Abernathy, who lived on the outskirts. He was a solitary figure, rarely seen, his old house standing alone in the quiet, never a primary suspect. His name was barely a footnote in the original investigation reports. Miles felt a sudden, cold chill, a jolt of recognition, a chilling clarity in his mind. He started digging into Abernathy's past, meticulously sifting through old records and archives. A pattern began to emerge. A history of small, unreported incidents in other towns. Other disappearances, years ago, far from here, all dismissed as unrelated or runaways. Every single incident had been dismissed, unconnected, seemingly innocent at the time. Miles saw a horrifying pattern forming, a thread of darkness connecting disparate events. He set up discreet surveillance on Abernathy's home, watching for any telltale signs. He watched Abernathy's every quiet move, day and night, from a hidden vantage point, unseen. The old man lived a stark, solitary life, a routine that rarely varied, almost like clockwork. But there was something in his eyes, Miles noticed, a disturbing stillness that defied his calm exterior, a profound stillness that spoke volumes, hinting at secrets hidden beneath the surface. Miles knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that it was time to confront Abernathy. He drove slowly to the old man's house, each deliberate step heavy with anticipation. The old house stood dark and silent, a quiet sentinel against the encroaching evening. Abernathy invited him in, surprisingly calm, his eyes meeting Miles. With a strange intensity, Miles laid out the evidence, piece by painstaking piece, connecting every thread of the case. The mitten, the unique fibers, the damning timeline, all pointed directly to him. Abernathy listened, his face impassive, a mask of unreadable quietude. Then, a soft sigh, a tremor in his voice, barely audible, breaking the heavy silence. "She just wandered in," he mumbled, his gaze fixed on the floor. A quiet admission, the confession, quiet and chilling, emerged under the stark interrogation light. He led Miles to a hidden room, a false wall in the basement, cleverly disguised. Underneath the old floorboards, beneath layers of dust and forgotten things, lay a secret, a small, cramped space, carefully concealed, a dark, suffocating chamber. And there, buried beneath old felts, a chilling discovery awaited them. Sarah's diary, her delicate handwriting on worn pages, her last desperate entries. It wasn't about running away, not at all. It was a story of terror and confinement, It was about being trapped, afraid, hoping for rescue that never came. Abernathy had lured her, kept her hidden, a predator in a quiet neighborhood. The truth, finally revealed, was far worse than any nightmare they could have imagined. A monster had been hiding in plain sight, living among them, undetected for years. Abernathy was arrested, offering no resistance. His quiet demeanor finally shattered. The town reeled, gripped by shock and disbelief at the horrifying revelation. Sarah's parents finally had their answers, the brutal truth. After decades of agony, not the answers they ever wanted to hear, but closure in its most painful form. Miles felt a bittersweet relief. The heavy burden lifted, yet the sadness lingered. The case was officially closed, the archive box sealed. After all these long, dark years, justice, in its imperfect way, had finally been served, bringing a measure of peace. But the scars, invisible yet deep, on the community, they remained etched forever. The innocence of the small town shattered, replaced by a lingering sense of unease, a stark reminder of the darkness that can dwell quietly within seemingly normal lives. Miles often revisited the old mill, walking the path where Sarah was last seen, remembering. The wind seemed to whisper Sarah's name through the trees, a constant, mournful echo. He carried the immense weight of those memories, the haunting images, every single day. But also a renewed resolve, a deep sense of duty to those who could no longer speak, to speak for those silent victims, to ensure their stories were heard, their justice sought, to tirelessly search for truth, no matter how obscured, no matter how long it took. This case was a stark, brutal lesson etched into the fabric of the community. That evil doesn't always wear a clear, monstrous face. It can be deceptive and subtle. Sometimes it hides perfectly in plain sight, behind a quiet demeanor, an average life, always watching, always waiting for an opportunity, a moment of vulnerability.